Everybody remembers their first trip to the zoo, right? It's an exhilarating experience to be able to get up close and personal with these exotic animals brought to you from all around the world. Who can forget looking into the eyes of some of nature's most fierce predators? No doubt it's a memorable experience for kids and adults alike. But what about the animals? If you look beneath the veil, you might notice that these animals are actually suffering both mentally and physically. You need to understand that for millions of years, these animals have evolved and adapted to thrive in specialized environments. Their physical traits and instincts have been refined for generations so they can survive in their natural habitats. Do you honestly think that taking them away from that environment and throwing them in a glass cage, which kids bang against all day, do you honestly think that's healthy for these animals? Do you think they're happy? For the dum-dums out there, the answer is no. Cats pacing back and forth is a sign of mental distress. The dorsal fins of an orca only collapses when they're in captivity. When chimpanzees pluck their own hair or hit themselves, it's a sure sign that their mental health has deteriorated. It's also not uncommon for captive animals to gang up and kill their own kind when in captivity. Mother bears have been seen eating their newborns. For me personally, there's nothing worse than seeing an elephant locked in a tiny enclosure. Out in the wild, they're walking 25 kilometers every day, and it's this lack of exercise that results in captive elephants dying much earlier than those in the wild. Imagine if you were suddenly confined to your own bedroom for the rest of your life. Another difficult thing to watch is when lions and tigers, the kings of the jungle, have piles of meat just tossed at them. These are apex predators. Their entire existence revolves around hunting, and you've taken that away from them. And when people attempt to release these big cats back into the wild, they die because they no longer have the hunting skills. One common argument in favor of zoos is that they're there to educate the public. When children see these majestic animals firsthand, they're going to appreciate nature, develop a green thumb, and they'll want to protect them, support conservation efforts, and purchase ethical and sustainable products. As Robin Ganzert, CEO of the American Humane, puts it, people won't protect what they don't love, and they can't love what they don't know. A paper by the Conservative Biology also found that zoo visitors increased their understanding of how to protect biodiversity. Zoos are used for thousands of zoological studies and have produced a vast amount of scientific knowledge, ranging from disease transmission to the preservation of animals still in the wild. However, there's no reason other than convenience that a zoologist would decide to learn about animals in a zoo rather than out in the wild, where these animals actually display natural behaviors. So, from this point of view, these captive animals are kind of like martyrs. Their suffering will ensure that their wild counterparts have a better chance of survival in the future, or so they say. And hey, there's conservation programs that release some animals back into the wild in the hopes that they can increase wild populations, but the success rates of these programs varies greatly. I can get on board with captive breeding programs for severely endangered animals, but personally, I don't think it's ethical to imprison animals just to build public appreciation, and there's very few reasons why research can't be conducted out in the wild. Zoos go to a lot of effort to hide the cages these animals are locked in. Over the years, they've replaced metal bars with thick glass. They place tons of plants and artificial rocks all across the zoo to simulate a jungle environment, which tricks your brain into thinking that these cages are somehow natural. They also use moats and high retaining walls to disguise the fact that these animals are locked in, which works well until you forget to watch your kid and he falls in. For me, there is no comparison to seeing an animal in the wild. There is a true awe that comes from seeing a pod of dolphins breaching the open waters during a sunrise. There's power behind seeing animals in their natural habitat thriving and really living the way they're supposed to. Zoos make a complete mockery of every true experience I've ever had with an animal in the wild. It's easy to look back 100 years and see how terrible slavery was, yet At the time, the people thought this was normal. Zoos will be held in the same regard. Future generations will shake their heads in disgust at how we allowed for millions of beautiful animals to be imprisoned and put on display in tiny cages for our accessible entertainment. Imagine if an alien race came to Earth and placed 1 million humans in their galactic zoo to help the preservation of our race. Would that be ethical? Hell no. Have you ever wondered how these zoos obtained some of their animals? In countries all across the world, like Brazil and even in the United States, it's common for zoos to purchase animals from the black market but then tell the public that they were rescued from poachers. The origins of zoos is also interesting. They started off as a symbol of wealth, not for research and education, and eventually they opened up as businesses for the public to come and pay and see these animals. It's kind of like the education and research element of zoos was an afterthought to help silence critics. Regardless though, these animals at the zoo are suffering. To suppress the nature and instincts of a wild animal is synonymous to ethnocide. You're killing them from the inside. Every time you purchase a ticket to the zoo, your money endorses and encourages this mistreatment of animals. There's no ethical justification for zoos. There are ethical alternatives to see animals in the wild. You can research animals in the wild. It's time to boycott the zoos.